Dillian the Body Snatcher right here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
You know what? I've never known a small section of a particular fan base be so obsessed and loving and adoring of one particular fighter like a small section of Deontay Wilder fans are, when a lot of the things that he says is quite clearly complete garbage and a blatant lie, or he's deluded in himself. I mean, let's be real, he talks about himself as a third person, and he believes somehow, because he's got like a little bit of fame now on the back of Joshua, that he's somewhat anointed by God. This is his delusions, and he has a very small fan base that kind of tag along with it. I'm not talking about his whole fan base, I'm talking about a section within it. And they kind of follow him and his word like he's Gandhi or Buddha or something. Well, to be fair, he probably has the same size legs as Gandhi, to be fair. But anyway, so Deontay Wilder, he originally says to Dillian Whyte, if you take on Luis Ortiz, that would earn you a title shot against me. Now, he said this a few months back, okay? And Dillian Whyte said to him, okay, fine. You give that to me in writing to guarantee me I beat Luis Ortiz. You fight me next. In other words, you fight no other person. You fight me next. He refused to do it and threatened to freeze Dillian out for the next 2 years. He didn't have to fight anybody. You've seen all this. I've done a couple of videos on this particular subject anyway. But a small section of the fans, even now, it doesn't matter what video you do, it doesn't matter what you say, and even after this one, it will just continue and continue and continue. Now, I'm not saying everybody's going to hear all these videos, of course not. That's why I tend to repeat a lot of the same things for people who haven't heard some of the bits before. Okay, so, you know, do forgive me for repeating some things that a lot of you guys already know. Now, Dillian Whyte has said that he's willing to fight Luis Ortiz. He has no issues with that. But as I said, Deontay Wilder just refused it. In other words, what he says on camera isn't what he says behind closed doors. Much like with the whole Joshua thing, right? And a small section of his fan base say, yeah, Dillian Whyte, he needs to go earn his shot at Deontay Wilder. But yet these people don't have the brain cell within them to say, or even look at, what was it that Deontay Wilder done to earn his title shot? I'll tell you what he done. He beat Jason Gavin. And I've said this 100 times. He beat Jason Gavin, who wasn't even ranked in the top 100. This was the guy he took on before Bermane Stiverne for the title. Bearing in mind, he didn't fight Vitaly Klitschko when he had it. He waited for Vitaly Klitschko to retire. And I'm kind of almost a little bit bored going over the same things again. But it's all relevant. Because why does Dillian Whyte have to do anything? That's the first one. He's number one in the WBC. He's beaten a former world champion in Joseph Parker. He became the first person to actually drop Joseph Parker. And you're saying that, well, because he got hurt in the very final round and he had to hang on, that wipes away the whole victory? Behave yourself. It's a 12-round fight. Okay? A 12-round fight. He clearly won that fight on points. Clearly. Right? And he beat before him undefeated former world champion, yes, former world champion, it's on record, Lucas Browne. But again, people say, well, you know, Lucas Browne, he didn't come in the best of shape and da-da-da. Okay, fine. But he still beat him. He's beaten Derek Chisora. He's beaten a guy who was tipped to be the replacement for Vladimir Klitschko in Robert Helenius. And Robert Helenius was scared to death of Dillian Whyte. Deontay Wilder has turned down $8 million to fight Dillian Whyte. A so-called easy fight. He didn't want to do it. And this small section of fan base keep going, well, Dillian Whyte ain't nothing. Dillian Whyte's trash. Dillian Whyte's this. Dillian Whyte's that. But yet, could you name a couple of fighters that could beat Dillian Whyte? Now, I know the Wilder fans would say that Wilder would. And some will say that Anthony Joshua would. But outside of them, is there anybody right now that you would put your house on, your car on, that would beat Dillian Whyte? You couldn't, could you? You really couldn't. So anyway, the fan base keep talking about how Dillian Whyte ducked Luis Ortiz, even though it was for secondary mandatory, which means he wouldn't have got a shot at Wilder for at least 1 year after Dominic Breazeale got his shot against Wilder. But you know what? He should go fight Luis Ortiz based on Deontay Wilder's word of what he says on social media or on camera. Even though he has consistently done the complete opposite on many occasions to what he says on camera. With Dillian Whyte, no, I'm not signing that. But yet again, he reaffirms the offer's still on the table, fight Luis Ortiz. But yet, didn't you say to Dillian Whyte, no, you didn't? Even though Dillian Whyte shouldn't have to fight Luis Ortiz, Dillian Whyte shouldn't have to fight anybody to get Deontay Wilder. There's a lot of people that will pick Dillian Whyte to beat Wilder. A lot of people. So if there's plenty of people out there picking him to beat Wilder, surely as champion you'll want to go, no, I ain't having that. I'm going to prove this. Dylan, let's have a fight. No, he doesn't want to do that. You need to jump through all hoops. So anyway, Dillian Whyte has responded to Deontay Wilder's latest statement of, you fight Luis Ortiz, you're getting me next. First of all, don't believe a word Wilder says. He's not a man of his word. He never has been. So, anyway, this is what Dillian Whyte had to say. In my last 2 fights, I fought 2 former world champions, yet Wilder believes that I have to fight Ortiz to be second placed mandatory. Who's Ortiz's best win? A dreadful points win over Malik Scott, who Chisora knocked out. I offered to fight Ortiz years ago, but he didn't want to know. He didn't even want to know this summer and asked for silly money coming off a knockout loss to Wilder, and made it clear that he wouldn't be ready for July the 28th, which was the date we had available. Funnily enough, it didn't stop him fighting someone else on that day. Wilder wants me to jump through hoops that he dictates before I can fight him. Yet he fought journeyman Jason Gavin immediately before he fought for the world title. So that is Dillian Whyte's statement. He did go on about the whole Wilder and Fury bit as well, but you know, I'll pin this article in the description so you can have a read of all of it. I may actually do a separate video on what he says about Wilder and Tyson Fury, but for now it's purely about Luis Ortiz. So yeah, exactly as I've said many times beforehand, Wilder fought Jason Gavin before then. And yes, Luis Ortiz, I mean, his best win, Dillian Whyte says, Malik Scott. Now Malik Scott, yes, he got knocked out by Derek Chisora. He also got knocked out by Deontay Wilder by getting punched on the gloves. As in, not on the side of the gloves, not like Malik Scott had his gloves up and a fist went through the gloves and connected. No. They hit him square on the padding of the gloves, and Malik Scott went down and lost his ass, is what happened. He didn't want to get back up again. He got scared, is what happened. He bottled it. He took a dive. There's no disputing that. Go watch the videotape. Go watch it. So, I mean, again, I could probably disagree with Dylan on that, but anyway, that Luis Ortiz's best win is Malik Scott. For me, I think his best win is Bryant Jennings. But Bryant Jennings, the fight before that, lost to Vladimir Klitschko. Again, you know, Bryant Jennings is a guy who was never going to be a world champion, let's be real, but he's always going to be a contender. That was always going to be it. So for me, I think Bryant Jennings is the best win for Luis Ortiz. But of course, since then, he has fought Malik Scott, who took a dive, who did get knocked out by Derek Chisora, and is somewhat borderline journeyman. I want to be rude, I really don't, but that's pretty much what Malik Scott is. So yeah, he went the distance with Malik Scott. Then after then, one of my favourite fighters, Dave Allen, who is very, very underrated. Luis Ortiz was in with Dave Allen for an 8-rounder, and Dave Allen was 1 second away from getting to the final round with Luis Ortiz. Dave Allen came into that fight having doing no training, no anything. He was overweight, he was unfit. Now, Dave Allen would say all this on plenty of occasions, of course he would. He bit his tongue early in the rounds, and yet he went all that distance with Luis Ortiz. So what did Luis Ortiz do exactly to get a world title shot? I'll tell you what happened. Deontay Wilder knew about the high blood pressure medication, put 2 and 2 together, realised that Luis Ortiz is in fact much older than what he's claiming, and thought, you know what, this is a good time to fight him. Not only that, 1 hour before Luis Ortiz took on Wilder, as in on fight night, They had Dominic Breazeale and Charles Martin on standby to replace him because they didn't want to put Luis Ortiz in the ring because he couldn't be medically cleared 1 hour before the fight. So how is that even a reputable win in some ways? Not only that, this same guy who they didn't want to put in the ring with him because he wasn't medically cleared, let's be honest, he knocked out Wilder in round number 7. You could argue that that fight should have been stopped at that point. But at the same time, Luis Ortiz, he gassed out because he's getting on a bit. He went headhunting when what he should have done was try to break his ribs. Done everything that he could to get Wilder on the floor, but he didn't. He was throwing amateur punches at him, to trying to swing, to trying to knock him clean out. Wilder needed the referee to help him out, help him walk to the corner. When Wilder stood up after the 1 minute interval, the referee took Wilder over to the corner. Even Paulie Malignaggi, who's good friends with Wilder, by the way, was working on Showtime, and he said, "What the hell is going on? He's not cut. This isn't fair. This is ridiculous." Paulie Malignaggi knows the rules of the New York State Commission very, very well. So people can hide behind that all they like. Paulie Malignaggi knows better than what you do. So yeah, he was given valuable seconds to recuperate. But unfortunately for Luis Ortiz, he couldn't recuperate. He spent himself at the end of round number 7. But ultimately, that don't even matter. Why should Dillian Whyte have to fight Luis Ortiz, who only just lost to Wilder? Why is Luis Ortiz even ranked there? Let's be real. But anyway, that's Dillian Whyte's statement. You drop me yours, click that thumbs up, and of course subscribe. Catch you all on the next video.